Welcome to the FML Podcast, the podcast on a mission to uncover actionable insights, explore the latest trends, and to catalyze your fintech's growth. Join Growth Gorilla's founder and managing director, Sachdev, and some of fintech's hardest-hitting marketers and leaders.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of the FML Podcast. Today we're joined by Andy Bromberg, CEO at Eco. Andy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great stuff. I think, best place to start is at the beginning. Could you share a bit about yourself, your journey so far, and how you've ended up at Eco?
I was born in Massachusetts, went to Stanford University for undergrad and studied math and computer science there. And the reason I mention that is that I was really lucky when I was there. I had a professor named Balaji Srinivasan, who some of your listeners might be familiar with. He founded a company called Earn.com, sold it to Coinbase, was Coinbase's CTO, was a general partner at Andreessen Horowitz, and now just published a book called The Network State, and is kind of a philosopher on Twitter and an investor. And he was my professor at the time in undergrad. A group of us, 7 of us from that class, ended up with Balaji starting the Stanford Bitcoin group. So he convinced us back in 2012 or 2013 that Bitcoin was going to be a big deal and that it was going to be really important. We were actually a little skeptical at the time, but he sold us. And we ended up forming the Stanford Bitcoin group in 2012, 2013, which was pretty early days crypto, not crazy early, but pretty early. And so I got into the space then, spent a couple of years at school and doing the Stanford Bitcoin group, running different projects, doing advocacy work for Bitcoin, all sorts of fun things. I ended up leaving school. I started a company in the political media space. And then I started a company called CoinList in crypto, which is a platform for the best digital asset companies to run their token sales, and also offers an exchange and a bunch of other business lines now. And that business has gone on to be very successful. Ran that for 3 years. And then I left and joined Eco, which I'm currently CEO of. Eco is a project that had been around for a few years that I had helped start. I was a founding advisor to Eco. But wasn't full time. And in 2020, I made the leap and came over to Eco and started running Eco. And we can talk more about Eco in a little bit, but at a very high level, it's a consumer financial product, digital wallet that allows you to spend, send, save, and make money all in one place with better rewards than your bank or really anywhere else. And is also an experiment in what we call an open rewards currency. But we can talk more about that later.
Definitely. If you could talk a little bit about CoinList before we sort of jump into Eco. That growth journey itself, and just talk us through, the inception of that, acquiring users, developing the product. I'd love to find out more about the whole adventure, really.
Yeah, so CoinList started in 2017. It originally started as a collaboration between AngelList, big startup fundraising platform, and Protocol Labs, who started and created Filecoin, which is, large and successful crypto project, as well as IPFS, a related technology. And what happened was that Protocol Labs was planning on running a token sale for Filecoin, and they realized they needed some help on compliance, on facilitating the actual sale and all the details for actually running the fundraising process. And so they called up AngelList and asked AngelList to help, and they collaborated on creating this infrastructure to run the Filecoin token sale. At the same time, they all realized every single crypto project is going to need this exact same set of services. This isn't unique to Protocol Labs. Everyone's going to need this. And made the decision to spin that out into a new and independent company called CoinList. And I knew all the people involved. And so along with my co-founders at CoinList, we stepped in to start that new spin out and run it and take it from there. When we started it in mid to late 2017, we were just getting into ICO and token sale mania. Tons of token sales happening in crypto. It felt like a total gold rush. And CoinList was the place to do it. It was the highest quality place for token sales to happen. And so we built a really strong business right off the bat with the momentum from the space. What happened then was interesting because as crypto does, it went into a bear market and token sales basically stopped. So our whole business was built around running these token sales. Yeah. And for a period of 6 or 12 months, projects basically said, we're not running token sales anymore. We're going to wait. And that meant that we had to figure out what to do. So we started experimenting with other business lines. I can share more about that. Ended up developing several that are now large business lines for CoinList, and just had to kind of fight through the winter. And then the market returned in 2020, and token sales picked back up, and the business has been on a really steady track ever since.
I'd like to dig into the different product lines. And it's actually so relevant for kind of where we are right now as a wider economy. In the UK, the Bank of England has said that, we're walking into a recession for the next 5 quarters. The media is saying it's, we're almost on the end of the world here now. And as a founder who's developed a product that's seen, like you said, a bit of a gold rush and then had the taps turned off, how do you manage that? And how do you deal with that, pivot, and do the things you need to do to help your business survive?
There's that saying, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. Yeah. And I do think a big part of the answer is that. It's that before that happens, before the crash happens, make sure you've raised sufficient capital to survive a downturn, to be able to make it through a downturn. Don't assume the good times will keep on rolling, but have done the work to build the foundation, make sure you can survive a downturn. And ideally, think about where the challenges might come from in your business in a downturn and build to prevent those, or at least mitigate them. I think what was really challenging for CoinList was that we knew token sales might not last forever at the rate they were going in late 2017, but we actually had such a limited window of time. We were trying to service customers like crazy, and really token sales were only around for probably 6 or 8 months after we started the company. So we had a 6 or 8 month period of amazing, crazy traction, endless attention. And then all of a sudden the spigot got turned off. So it wasn't like we had years to prepare. We had months to prepare, and that was challenging. And so we had to start from less then and build up from there. But I think in general, the best thing you can do is make sure you have sufficient capital and aren't reliant on the capital markets during a downturn. And then if you can, diversify business lines and try and plant some trees 10 years ago, plant some seeds that can eventually sprout up into something during a counter-cyclical.
You mentioned that you developed several product lines that are still there today. Do you have like a playbook or an approach that you take when it comes to developing product lines?
I think it's all about asking what ties in most neatly with your other product lines. Where do you have an unfair advantage because of your existing product lines? Because if you don't lean on unfair advantages from your existing products or distribution, then you're kind of starting from square zero along with every other competitor in the market. You're basically starting a whole new business from nothing. But if you can leverage an existing product line or an existing distribution channel, then you can leapfrog that. And you're not starting from zero anymore, you're starting from something. So for CoinList, for example, the core product was these token sales. So CoinList would work with a project, they would sell tokens on CoinList to participants in a token sale. And that was the foundation. It was a great business. The adjacencies that we were able to move into are really interesting. One of them was staking. So staking in cryptocurrency networks, the ability in certain networks to lock up tokens for some usage in the network and earn a return on locking up those tokens. And what we realized at CoinList was, well, we're running these token sales. All of these participants are on our platform. If we could get these participants to receive their tokens from the token sale on CoinList and then stake them there, we'd already have the market. We wouldn't need to attract new people to stake tokens on CoinList. We could just have people stake the tokens that they received from these token sales. That's a really interesting model. And as projects began to distribute their tokens, CoinList could allow participants to then stake their tokens, which is good for everyone. And we launched an exchange product. So we realized, well, if people are receiving tokens on CoinList from these token sales, they might want to trade those tokens. And why would we have them go somewhere else to trade those tokens when they could do it right here on CoinList? Great, let's do that. And so those are examples of things where we were able to leverage an existing model, an existing customer base, and offer them benefits that made their lives really easy while creating another line of revenue and a business opportunity for us.
The undertone of that is effectively retention and cross-sell. And I think that's really interesting because, we speak to a lot of businesses, a lot of startups, a lot of scale-ups on a daily basis. And I think when people think of introducing another product line, they think, well, let's add a new product line and let's get some new users for that. But I think, the winner here was actually, let's keep the users that we got, keep them happy and, service them better, and then obviously monetize them and maintain the base. And that's certainly the learning that I've taken anyway. So coming out of CoinList and sort of moving over and starting to look at Eco, you mentioned obviously you went on as founding advisor, and you said it started off as a project?
Eco started in 2017, around the same time CoinList did, and I helped formed the founding team and was super involved in its creation, but was not full-time. I was off running CoinList. And it had always been this project that I was deeply passionate about. The mission of the company is to put people's money back to work for them. Kind of conceding the idea that people's money is not working for them right now. It's working for banks and middlemen and all sorts of other parties, and it should be working for them. And that mission had always deeply resonated with me, and the ambition of the company had always resonated with me to rebuild the financial system from the ground up in a more aligned way. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. I was running CoinList. I was plenty busy. There was lots going on. And at some point in 2020, it just felt I wasn't trying to leave CoinList. I was extremely happy there and things were going great and still are going great. But there was this very unusual opportunity where I was deeply passionate about this company and what it was trying to do, Eco. I loved the team, thought the team was absolutely incredible. In 2020, we started to see signs of product market fit, and I got a lot of conviction that this thing was actually going to work. All of a sudden, I realized, wow, this thing's going to happen. And the last piece was that there was a little bit of a gap on the team, which happened to be exactly my skill set. And it's not that my skill set's particularly special or anything. It's just that there was a gap, and the stuff that I'm really good at, the team didn't have and needed for the next phase. And so when all of those factors came together, a mission I really cared about, a team I thought was incredible, evidence of traction and the thing actually working, and then a gap that was basically an Andy-shaped hole in some way, it was too good to pass up. And so I ended up leaving CoinList in 2020, stayed on as an advisor there, but switched over and became CEO of Eco in October 2020.
You gave us a brief overview of what Eco is and what Eco does. Do you mind just taking us through that again, if that's okay?
So Eco is a replacement for your bank at its core. It's a single, simple balance for your whole financial life, everything in one place. That means spending, sending, saving, making money all in one place. So very practically, right now it's only available in the US, although we're working on expanding. You put your dollars in, your dollars start to earn 2.5% to 5% APY rewards, which is way better than what banks pay you in interest. You get 5% cash back at major merchants like Amazon and Uber and DoorDash and Instacart. And there's a bill pay service. You can pay your bills. There's a card service. You can swipe your Eco card anywhere, and a bunch more features coming. Obviously, other things like budgeting and investing and peer-to-peer payments, and all of those are really important. And what we're trying to do is create a product where you can have your whole financial life there in one place without any headache. Because fundamentally, if you're anything like me, and turns out most people are, you have at least a dozen financial apps on your phone. You've got your bank's app, you've got 2 credit card apps, you've got Robinhood, you've got Coinbase, you've got Venmo, you've got Cash App, you've got a slew of different things on your phone. And that makes it really hard. And it makes it a huge headache to keep track of where your money is. And what's interesting is if you ask a lot of people how much money they have right now, they actually can't answer the question because they'd have to go and do the math of, I owe this much on my credit card and I have this much on my bank account. And people don't know how much money they have. And so we want to solve that and build one simple place for your whole financial life that's more rewarding than anything else because it's able to cut out the middlemen. And two last things that I'll mention really quickly that are important to Eco's trajectory. One is that, Eco aims to be powered by crypto. And so we don't talk about this super overtly because it doesn't really matter to our end customer. But behind the scenes, your audience will find this more interesting than our average user. A lot of it's powered or can be powered by crypto. And that enables us to do things like move money faster and more seamlessly and offer these amazing benefits to users. Again, users only care about the benefits, but other people care more about the technology that's used to create it. So I mentioned that here. And then the last piece I'll mention is that we're creating Eco points. So when you use the product, not only do you get these dollar-denominated rewards, 2.5% to 5% APY rewards, 5% cash back, but you also earn Eco points. And these points are our experiment in what we call an open rewards currency. Kind of asking the question, what would a rewards economy look like, or a rewards currency look like if it was open? If it wasn't a walled garden like every loyalty point and rewards program is today, but if you could actually transfer your points out, if anyone else could accept those points if they wanted to accept them, and how would that change the dynamics and the alignment of such a system? So that's ultimately what we're working towards, is building out that open rewards currency.
You're right. Our audience will be very interested in terms of behind the scenes. And actually, I'd like to dig into that a little bit more. So you mentioned obviously you deposit dollars or eventually once you're global, I assume your local currency. What role does crypto play in eco if I'm depositing in dollars and if and how does that affect the end user and how does it benefit the end user?
When we talk about crypto here, and this is one of the challenges talking about crypto means a lot of things, right? When some people hear crypto, they think Bitcoin and Ethereum and these really volatile, but really interesting assets. That's actually not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is dollar-denominated stablecoins. So fully collateralized dollar-backed stablecoins that mirror the value of a dollar. And they aren't volatile. They don't fluctuate in value in any sort of meaningful way. They're very closely tied to the dollar. And so user funds, in certain cases, can be converted into these stablecoins where the value stays the same, but what changes is the rails on which they can move. Now, all of a sudden, instead of needing to move on the wire system or the ACH system or any of these decrepit, decades-old pieces of technology, again, in the United States, they can move on much faster, much cheaper crypto rails. And so what it allows us to then do is build a much more efficient backend and funds flow in business and allow us to offer access to better rewards for people by cutting out the middlemen that are present on traditional rails.
I kind of see, I put my marketing hat on and I think for your average user, there may be a degree of skepticism. And like you said, when they think crypto, they think Bitcoin. When they think Bitcoin, they think volatility and all sorts. What is Eco's go-to-market strategy? Is it going for the diehard Bitcoiners and hodlers and then expanding out? Or is it educating your everyday retail audience and encouraging them to become an Eco customer? How are you sort of tackling that positioning piece and that brand message piece?
One thing we say a lot internally that we really believe and stand by is that Eco is for everyone. So we want to build a product that everyone can use and feels comfortable using and gets the benefits from, because we genuinely believe it's the best financial services out there, set of financial services out there, and we believe everyone deserves access to the best financial services. And so we believe Eco is for everyone. In practice, we don't really target the crypto community. Well, we certainly have, people who are interested in crypto on the platform. We're much more focused on the broader public, which is a much greater number of people. And so, we're targeting everyone, really. People that are unhappy with their bank, which turns out to be pretty much everyone, and who are looking for a better place to put their money in a better set of financial services. And that's what we can provide.
It's clearly something you're very, very passionate about and taking into consideration that like you said, Eco is not necessarily for everyone, but it's built for everyone. How have you sort of developed the product around that? And how have you, how are you aligning your I suppose your product with your marketing to make it easy for your average retail customers to use to build that trust factor, for example?
One thing that's really important for us is that we onboard, and this is very uncommon in the space, we onboard every Eco customer one-on-one. And we can talk about the unit economics of that and how that works out and everything. I think it's actually kind of the best kept secret in fintech is that this is a really effective way to onboard people and cost effective. And it dramatically increases people's confidence in the product they're using. Because if you think about it, the idea of signing up for a financial service without talking to another human being, that's a very new concept. Until very recently, you would never sign up for something like a bank account or another financial service without talking to someone. And that has obviously changed a little bit in the advent of the internet and mobile and all of that. But we don't think it's totally natural. And it's hard to trust a faceless, nameless app. So we put everyone through an onboarding session where they actually talk to someone from Eco. It results in dramatically higher conversion and dramatically higher deposit sizes than any other neobank or digital wallet. Our average deposit is something like 20 times the average neobank or digital wallet in the United States because of these onboarding sessions. Because we take the time to talk to people, we'll build trust, and actually bring them onto the platform. From that, what we're basically doing is running customer interviews all day, every day. We're onboarding them to the product, but they're also telling us what they think and giving us feedback and asking us questions. And that is then what informs our product development. So while we do the onboarding sessions primarily for the effect they have on growth and the trust that they build in people, it's just as valuable getting the feedback back from them that then turns into developing the product that suits the needs of the people that we're actually onboarding.
I was going to say that's very reminiscent of Paul Graham's "Do Things That Don't Scale," and I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a huge trick that is missed. Talking to customers, they expect sort of turning on some ads, and users are going to just make their way through the sign up form without any reassurance or any credence in your brand that they've never heard of before at all. Equally, though, I think that aligns really, really well with perhaps the millennial audience. Do you think that's the same story for, say, a Gen Z audience that has lived their life in digital, who are fundamentally engrossed in TikTok, etc., and online applications? Do you think that's relevant for them? Does it work with them, or is that not your audience?
It does work with them, but that speaks to a broader point. And it's a good thing to call out. We are working on building kind of a more varied funnel where users get what they need. Some users, frankly, are good to sign up. They're good to go. You could take the example of someone who was referred by an existing user, right? If you're an Eco user and you tell your best friend, hey, you got to use this thing called Eco. It's great. I have all my money in it. Your friend probably doesn't need an onboarding session. He's probably good to go, right? He's had an onboarding session from the person who referred him. So we'd like to be able to route kind of higher intent people like that through a process that doesn't necessarily include an onboarding session. Perhaps people that are somewhere in between, maybe the Gen Z audience, go through a little bit of a lighter session, or perhaps even an automated flow with just some videos and content there. And then most people go through an actual onboarding session the way we do it today. So we're working on building out that funnel and those different paths for users to go down.
And just touching on that referral piece, how important is that to your growth at the moment? Is that a key driver, or is that something that you're looking to double down on?
Key driver, and we're looking to double down on it. I think it's the most powerful thing in the world for any type of growth, but especially for fintech growth, where trust is so key. And for different types of products, like for social apps, that can have a really easy, frictionless sign-up process. Sending someone from an ad to a social app can work, right? It can be really easy. And it doesn't require a lot of trust. And if the person tries the app and doesn't like it, they just delete it. It's fine. A financial app has such a higher level of friction because, first of all, you have to go through know your customer due diligence, right? You have to submit your driver's license photo and all this information about yourself to open an account. And then you have to deposit money into it. And so when you have that high level of friction, things like referrals become even more important because that starts the new user at a much higher baseline level of trust and commitment, which gets them through the activation energy required to go through the funnel.
I always, whenever I used to have new starters prior to running Growth Gorilla, I was at a trading platform. I used to work for a trading platform, and when I was training up sales or marketing, I always used to say that selling financial services is so different from selling any other product, because you're selling effectively an intangible product. You're effectively putting the platform or the app in their hand and then telling the user to then just do something with it. It's not a direct exchange of here's a widget for a few quid or for a bit of money. It's I'm giving this to you, and now you need to go through and jump through all the hoops for us as a business, so then we can monetize the money that you're going to deposit onto our account. It's a completely different mindset. And that's why I think fintech as an ecosystem is completely different from, I think a lot of other tech startup areas or even other product lines. You're clearly speaking from a position of experience, which kind of then brings us sort of full circle back to CoinList. What are the key lessons that you took away from your wins and losses at CoinList that you brought over to Eco? And what are the mistakes that you're not hoping to make?
There's two things that come to mind on lessons learned. One of them was, which we were fortunately able to do at CoinList, but it was close, was raising enough capital to survive a downturn, which we talked about earlier. And that's the reason CoinList is such a large and successful business today, is because we were able to keep investing and keep our team and keep the lights on during a downturn, which then allowed us to come out of that downturn with a lot of momentum and accelerate into the trajectory that it's on today. And so that was a really big takeaway. And we did that with Eco and raised some pretty substantial money last year for exactly that reason, to be able to survive a downturn. So that's one. And then the second one that comes to mind is the importance of, and this is, people are beginning to realize this is not just me, the importance of community. And there's a difference between audience and community, right? An audience is a set of people that you're broadcasting to. A community is a set of people that actually have relationships with each other. And if you can build a community around your product, which Coinlist was able to do, Eco's been able to do, it's the most powerful thing because it keeps people much more attached. The retention is much higher than if they're just being broadcast to. And so the learning about community has been a big one for me. And that's something that we really focus on at Eco as well.
Going back to your point about obviously raising enough capital, and just a point to know, your investor list does read like a who's who, which is something to, I think a lot of our audience would be interested in that. And I would strongly suggest looking at the About Us page on the Eco site. But without spending too much time on that, what I'm more interested in is looking at the future for Eco and I suppose the path to growth and what the plans are there. So you're at around did you say about 40,000 users at the moment?
40,000 members of the community. Yeah.
What are the aspirations for Eco over the next sort of 12 months and next 36 months?
It's time to scale, right? For us, I think we've built the foundation. The product's in a really good place. The feature set is really strong. People find it extremely compelling. And now it's just time for us to scale. And that means scaling acquisition. It means scaling our onboarding capacity, allowing us to onboard many more users. It means working through our wait list. We have a long wait list of people waiting to sign up for Eco, and getting them off and getting them through onboarding sessions is important. So yeah, for us, the next year or two is all about scale.
It's been a super interesting conversation, Andy, and I think there's lots of other avenues that we could talk about that probably fall out of the fintech box, but we'll leave that for another day. Jumping into the quickfire round, to start off with, what podcasts do you have on repeat?
I'm not a huge podcast listener, but the one that I turn to most often when I'm listening to them is Conversations with Tyler Cowen from George Mason University. And he just has these amazing thinkers on his podcast. He's an incredible interviewer, always really interesting, unexpected topics.
What book are you reading at the moment, and what books would you recommend?
Just wrapping up and rereading a book called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, which is really excellent, highly recommended. I have a lot of books I love. Spent a lot of time reading sci-fi and have all sorts of sci-fi recommendations. There's also a lot of great business books. I just read Amp It Up by Frank Slootman, which I thought was excellent. And what is it called?
Never Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference. Yes. Yeah. Never Split the Difference, which is really, really good too. So yeah, lots of great books out there.
Yeah, I read that one recently as well. That's it's by that former hostage negotiator, isn't it? I can't remember his name. Aside from Coinlist and Eco, what's your favorite fintech app or platform?
I think Robinhood is really interesting for a lot of reasons, but the reason that I would maybe put it as my favorite is just that the product itself, as the app and the interface of the product, they've gotten all the little touches right, and it just feels like a really good product to use. And I think that visceral feeling of quality is something that can be really helpful for fintech products. So I admire Robinhood for pulling that off.
What's the best bit of life advice you've ever received?
I've gotten a lot, and there's been a lot that's really good. The first one that comes to mind is when I started my first company, one of our investors, when I pitched him, he said he was interested and wanted to invest. And I asked him for any advice at the end of the meeting. And he said, and he's a very successful investor. He's been around in the space for a long time. And he said, don't alienate people. He said, listen, you may have to, have hard conversations, make hard decisions, do all of that. Absolutely do that. That's critical. But when you do that, don't alienate people. Don't unnecessarily do things that provoke people and alienate them and make them an enemy for life. It's not worth it. It doesn't make sense. And not that that's my baseline approach to alienate people, but I think that rings in my ears often just as a foundational thing that hard conversations are good, alienation is bad, and there is a clear line between those that you can avoid walking.
I mean, you can even inadvertently do it by accident without any intention, right? It doesn't necessarily have to have malice behind alienating someone. And then who in the world of I suppose, fintech or startups, let's call it, would you most like to go to lunch with?
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful things about fintech and startups, at least in my experience, is that you can kind of go to lunch with whoever you want. Everyone's open to conversations and open to sitting down and having a chat. Even if you're superficially competitors, people are always willing to do that. I'd probably sit down with Robinhood founders. I think they've done incredible work, and I would love to talk to them about their kind of product building sensibilities. I think that would be really interesting. But really, there's tons of successful, interesting companies out there that I could learn a lot from. And so I'd take lunch with pretty much anyone.
And my last and favorite question, what's one thing that I haven't asked you that you perhaps felt I should have?
One thing I often get asked on podcasts is whether we're hiring. And the answer is yes. So if any of your audience is looking for a new gig, we got a bunch of roles open. In fact, especially if they're growth focused, we've got a couple of roles open for that. So if anyone wants to come our way, eco.com/jobs, and we're actively hiring right now.
Andy, that was amazing. Really enjoyed that. Thank you very much for your time today, and thank you very much for coming on to our podcast.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
The FML Podcast is brought to you by Growth Gorilla. To find out how our marketing growth experts can boost your fintech's growth, head to growthgorilla.co.uk. And make sure to search for the FML Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Growth Gorilla, thanks for listening.